Hey guys, Tom here again from synthhacker.com and welcome back to another tutorial for Extra Record Serum. In this tutorial we're going to be looking at making a key sound in the style of Flume, so like quite chilled electronica type vibe, and we're using the chords from his track Holdin On, which is kind of the track that I use for inspiration for this sound as well. So really beautiful sound. I don't think it's exactly the same as the key sound that Flume used, but it's quite similar. It's a similar type of thing. And you know, hopefully you don't want to copy these exact sounds anyway. You should really be trying to put your own spin on stuff. But really the kind of fundamentals are here. You can really take this and do your own thing with it, which is kind of what the point I'd say of, you know, looking at sound design tutorials and stuff is, to kind of get an idea and then kind of turn it into your own thing. So there's quite a lot to cover here, so I will try to get through it as fast as I can, while also explaining kind of why I'm doing what I'm doing as well. So first of all, we're just going to initialize the preset here. Here we go, and as always guys, this video is sponsored by my website, which is synthhacker.com. Definitely go ahead and go over there if you get the chance to check out all my presets for Serum. I actually have a sale on my Serum Mega Pack at the minute, which has over 600 presets in there, all handcrafted by me. Loads and loads of sounds in there for a multitude of different genres that I think you'll definitely get a lot of use out of. So definitely go ahead over there and check that out over at synthhacker.com, or click the link in the description below. But without further ado, let's begin making this awesome key sound. So Flume really uses a lot of textures like this in his tracks, you know, a lot of soft textures in kind of like the breakdowns, and then it's kind of got this almost like future bass style drop when it kicks in with like big saw waves and stuff, which I'll probably do a tutorial on in the future. But because the textures themselves are quite soft, we can use kind of more rounded waveforms, and we don't really need to get too complex. One that I use quite a lot for key sounds, I used it in the Caribou key sounds tutorial I did, is this, where is it now? I think it's this analog BD sine wave. As I mentioned in that Caribou tutorial, this is really good for key sounds because you can kind of warp it a little bit with the wavetable position, so it's not completely perfect. So you kind of get some like interesting, nice harmonic textures from it. That's like, you know, a lot more interesting than just a boring sine wave. So we're going to be using the analog BD sine wavetable just on the default octave here. We're just going to have one voice of unison. We're going to make sure the wavetable position's all the way to the left pretty much. And then what we're going to do is actually use one of the warp modes. We're going to use the bend plus minus warp mode. And this is really cool because it gives you just like further control over the waveform. And you can really kind of, while you're making the sound or like listening back to it, you can tweak this to get the kind of texture that you want, which is really cool, just like really fine control. And then what we're going to do is, let's see, there's a lot to do. Let's go first of all into the envelope one, which by default is the amplitude envelope, of course. And it is a key sound, so we want quite a lot of sustain, or we do want sustain, I should say. But what I noticed about the key sound at the beginning of the Flume track was that it's actually also got quite a plucky sound, so the sustain does actually drop quite a bit. So what we're going to do, we're going to drop this to like nearly halfway, something like that, and we're going to just make this more of a less of a linear curve, sorry. And then we're just going to add a little bit of attack as well, just to soften up the beginning of the sound, and also add a little bit of release, like that. So far we just have this. So you can hear, although it is being sustained, it's also got that like decay, that quite sharp decay at the beginning, which we obviously want. The next thing we're going to do is set up the filter. So we're going to use the MG low pass 18 dB filter. Obviously we're going to be routing Oscillator A through it. We're going to set the cutoff to just over halfway, and then what we're going to do is use a second envelope to modulate the cutoff just slightly. We don't want this to be too extreme because then it becomes more of a pluck sound and less of a key sound. We just want a really kind of a subtle modulation going on. So we're just going to bring the envelope of this down a little bit to a little bit lower than the amplitude and give it a little bit of release there. And then just simply drag and drop it onto the cutoff. But like I said, this is just going to be really subtle. Because otherwise, if we increase this too much, it becomes too plucky rather than being a key sound. So we're also going to give this a little bit of attack as well, so it's not quite so harsh at the beginning. Again, so it's kind of a bit more soft at the start of the sound like you want from a key sound. The next thing we're going to do is go into our LFO here, and what we're going to do is we're going to set up an LFO here to automatically control the fine tuning of Oscillator A, and this is going to give us some like that really nice analog effect of like oscillator drift where the oscillators don't stay perfectly in tune, and this is just a really effective way to kind of add a little bit of interest and movement to the sound. So what we're going to do, because it's set on it's going to be modulating from the center position, to make sure it starts from the center, we're going to raise the LFO up to the middle, and then what we're going to do is move this over here, this point, and then create another point here and drop this down here, so we get this really continuous moving of the oscillator drifting. So if you can hear this more extreme if we do this, but obviously that's not musical, so we just want it to be really subtle. And just to make sure that it's not completely in sync with the beat, we kind of want it to have that like wobbly feel. We don't want it to be too kind of on the beat. We're going to turn off the BPM mode and we're just going to play around with the hertz setting. I think I found about 0.8 hertz sounded best to me, but obviously just play about with that and see what you think. The next thing I added was another LFO to give kind of like a tremolo effect, and tremolo is kind of like vibrato but for the amplitude or volume of the sound rather than the pitch. So this is just going to be really subtle. Again, we're going to take the BPM off. You can hear already that adds a really nice bit of movement to the sound that wasn't there before. We're going to reduce this to about 4.7 hertz. Again, we just want that to be really subtle. A lot of these things on their own, you don't hear much of a difference, but really it's kind of the compound effect of having all these fine little details that really add up to a really polished sound as a whole. The next thing we're going to do is add a little bit of drive to the filter. It's like the filters within Serum have this like really nice coloring effect, especially when you use the analog modeled filters like this one. It's just really cool. I also in the demonstration set up a macro to the cutoff, drive and wavetable position of the of the bend plus minus to allow the synth to open up, which I'll just demonstrate quickly here. So what you can do, instead of just automating just the cutoff, what you can do is actually add a macro to a bunch of different parameters in here. So I'll do an example with just the cutoff, the bend plus minus, which will make the sound harsher, and also the drive, and you'll hear the effect that this has. One second, I think I set up the bend plus minus wrong. Hang on. There we go. So that's a really interesting way to kind of modulate a few different things at the same time. And in the demonstration at the beginning, that modulation is actually how I demonstrated the sound. So that's really cool to bear in mind as well. The next thing we're going to do is dive into our effects section. There's a few interesting things going on here as well. The first thing I did, I noticed that although the sound in general in the Flume track was like quite low pass, like there wasn't really much high frequency content, at the attack of the sound there was this like nice little bit of crunchiness, and so to achieve this, what I did was actually use just the tube distortion, put it onto pre-mode here and high passed it, bring this peak down a little bit and put it up to about 3 and a bit thousand hertz. And then what I did was actually use envelope 3, if I just bring this down here, really low sustain and then a slightly curved decay with a little bit of release. And what I actually did was put this on the drive of the distortion, just so that there'd be more distortion at the start of the sound, and then when the sound kind of decays a little bit, that goes away and you just get the nice low pass pure tone. This is a really cool trick just to add a little bit of interest or sharpness to the beginning of the sound, but not the sound as a whole, which I'll just demonstrate here. Let me turn the macro down again. You can hear it quite extreme there. If I just open up the cutoff a little bit, you'll hear a bit more. You kind of have to fine tune this until you get a position that you like. I think mine was about here or something like that with quite a low mix. And that's just a really nice way to add a little bit of crunch to the beginning while not dominating the whole sound. I'm just going to reduce the decay on this a little bit as well though, because it was kind of a bit too much. There we go, with a little bit of release as well. So that's just a nice way to add a little bit of texture to the attack of the sound. The next thing that I did was add a chorus effect, which I usually use on keys. I think it sounds quite nice. So that's with. Just adds kind of like a little bit of thickness to the sound, which is really nice. And then finally, I think I just added a reverb. Obviously, you could use your own reverb. You don't have to use Serum's built-in one. If you prefer like an external reverb, you've got one that you like. But yeah, this sounds really cool as well. And there we go, Flume style keys. Really cool sound. Hopefully you got a lot of use out of this. If you have any questions about this sound or anything else, feel free to leave them down below. I do try and get back to everybody. To stay up to date with new tutorials for synthesis and synthesizers like Serum and other sound design tutorials as well, feel free to subscribe to the channel. That really helps support me, and obviously then you'll stay up to date with new content that I bring out. If you haven't already, please check out my website over at synthhacker.com to get your hands on some presets for Serum, all handcrafted by me. And yeah, thanks a lot for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.